Hey everyone, thought I'd do a short video today and talk about the differences between the job of a coroner and the job of a medical legal death investigator. Now, before I get asked about doing videos while driving, let me just say that I am completely hands-free. See, my hands are totally free. They are free to stay on the steering wheel and my eyes can stay on the road. So I'll just talk to you and we'll all be safe, okay? But in the meantime, you can kind of come along with me on this drive. Well, last night I had done Periscope. If you haven't subscribed to Periscope on Twitter or subscribed to my Twitter feed, you can do that and then download the Periscope app, and there's times that I do short live videos on Periscope about certain topics. Well, I did one last night on the differences between a coroner and a medical legal death investigator. I did that because I get asked that question a lot. Like, what are the differences and what are some things that people need to prepare for as far as training goes? So I wanted to cover that here shortly. So the biggest difference is this. Depending on your state and the area of whatever state you live in, things can be a little different. But a coroner is an elected or an appointed official that is charged with determining and ruling cause and manner of death. Now, with that said, how they do that can be a little bit different. Some coroners actually respond to the scenes themselves. They work the investigation very much like a medical legal investigator, and they work hand in hand with the police, and they come up with the cause and manner of death through all the means that a medical legal death investigator would. And then there are some states where the coroners are either elected or appointed, and their primary job is to run the office. They may be a pathologist where they do autopsies. They may just simply be the district attorney or an attorney or a medical doctor. There are some states that require the coroner to have a medical doctor degree. In those cases, they usually have a staff of medical legal death investigators that go to the scene that actually perform the investigative function. So that's kind of what a coroner does. So it is a little bit broad depending on the state you live in, plus on the requirements. Like I said, some coroners are required to have a medical degree. Well, surprisingly or not, there are some states that require no degree whatsoever. The state that I live in, for instance, Missouri, they do not require you to have a medical doctor degree to be a coroner. They do, however, require that there be some continuing education hours every year and some education for the coroner as they go. And that's very good. And you know, that may increase in time, but some states don't even require any training. I'm glad that Missouri does require training. That is by state law. And so it makes for a much, in most cases, a much better coroner's office. But let me talk then about a medical legal death investigator. And that title can apply to a coroner possibly, but usually it applies to the person that does the investigation. And they may work for the coroner's office, they may work for a medical examiner's office. But a medical legal death investigator is the one that actually goes to the scene of a death and works the investigation hand in hand with the police to collect evidence, collect the information that they need to assist in coming up with the cause and manner of death. Now, the basic principle between them and the police are this. The police are in charge of the crime scene and the whole crime scene, and the medical legal investigator is in charge of the body. And I say in charge, although in the best cases they work together. This separation of duties is okay in one respect, but when it starts getting to the situation where they're at opposite ends and they're butting heads, so to speak, that isn't good for any investigation. So really they work together. But the medical legal investigator will deal with everything to do with the body. And in most states, the statutes are true that body should not be moved, should not be touched, disturbed in any way until the medical legal death investigator arrives. Then it's their responsibility to maybe take more photos, maybe even collect some evidence. They might use the crime scene tech on scene to collect evidence. They might even be collecting the evidence themselves. They'll do a body exam there at the scene to see what type of wounds or marks are on the body that needs to be documented, or the lack thereof. And at some point, then that body is removed from the scene. The medical legal investigator in some jurisdictions actually have the equipment and the transportation vehicles to do the body removal themselves and take it either to the morgue or to the ME's office or wherever for autopsy. Some use what's called a delivery service, where they have contracted a company that will come to the scene when the investigator is ready and have the body removed. Then it is decided on whether or not there's an autopsy or not. So let's say there's not an autopsy. Well, then the medical legal investigator, as will the coroner in a lot of cases, in the counties where the coroner does the same job, kind of a dual role, they may obtain medical records. They may talk to family members, witnesses, friends, things like that, and then review medical charts, talk to doctors, and come up with the cause and manner of death. In the case of an autopsy, it is pretty much the same type of investigation, because not only are they trying to gather the information for their report, they also need to let the pathologist know what they have found out when it comes to medical history and things. The pathologist will then do the autopsy, and with that information combined with the investigation of the investigator, a cause and manner of death will be determined. All right, so the difference is this. A coroner is the elected or appointed official that is in charge of determining cause and manner of death. He or she may or may not also be a medical legal death investigator. And the medical legal death investigator is the one that goes to the scene. They may or may not be involved with the collection of evidence at the scene, and that depends on their level of training and jurisdiction. Of course, the crime scene technicians are normally the ones taking care of the evidence collection. But there are some jurisdictions that do not have a crime scene technician. They do everything themselves. So what type of training are you going to need? Well, number one, you're going to need at least a sense of knowledge of biology. A&P is a good, anatomy and physiology, that's a good class to have. You need to know about investigation techniques. One of the best things you can do is to spend time working with an agency and get qualified to become a certified medical legal death investigator through the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators. By doing that, then, you will be nationally recognized as being a certified basic knowledge of how to investigate a death. The other training you get, of course, is just ongoing. Interview techniques, blood spatter techniques, photography, body documentation, anything like that, anything you can gather and continue on. I have been at this business for many, many years. I teach it a lot all over the country. Of course, as you know, we have the podcast, and I interview a lot of experts from around the country. And I still learn every day. I am trying to find research material. I read articles. I find new books to read. I listen to other podcasts. I do everything I can to learn, because there's always new and better ways to do things, new evidence, new research. All of that stuff is ongoing and continuing. So when it comes to education, yeah, you need the basics, but then it don't stop there. Education should continue the rest of your life to be good. Let me ask you a question. What if your favorite doctor went to medical school 20 years ago and has never picked up a book, a research article, or any other continuing education classes since then? Do you think that doctor is still a viable doctor? He might be able to treat your headache and your ingrown toenail, but I don't know that I'd want him doing much more than that, certainly if he's never been to medical school or any other training, within the last 20 years. So that's your basic differences in a coroner and a medical legal death investigator. If you have any other questions, keep them coming. You can comment below this video. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, be sure to do that. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, all of that. Find our podcast at coronertalk.com. Anything I can do to help, any questions I can answer for you, please, please, please do not hesitate to contact me. My email is Darren, and that's DARREN at coronertalk.com, or just go to coronertalk.com and you can find me in the contact section. All right, everyone, till next time, be blessed and be safe.